Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pillai, and beside me here, this lovely lady is my CEO and founder of the group we're from, Sri Amas International. And this is a very, very different change of topic from what you've heard here today. What I will be introducing to you is gamification. And, well, one of the first things I'd like you to think about. But I'd like to ask you, how many of you here are teachers? Or in any line, you've been a teacher before, or you are acquiring the best kind of content for your schools? Right? Alright. Now, today what I'm going to share with you is an idea. An idea that is not new, but an idea that is very relevant to how our kids will be learning in the future and how they're learning right now. In fact, I'm part of that generation. So I'm going to show you a couple of things just after I share a quick fact with you. Now we, and when I say we, I mean myself as well, I'm a teacher and I'm also a vice principal at the school. Now what I do is, while I teach, I step in front of people like this every day, except I'm a lot more nervous with you guys around. With kids it seems to be very, very easy. I'm going to share this with you. When we step in front, we are actually trying to engage people. And the first thing we need to do when we engage people is we need to get their interest. And in order to do that, well, we'd love if our students came in and they looked at us as rock stars and idols, and they were looking forward to the next lesson, and they couldn't wait to come into your class. That would be the most amazing thing. But of course, if we saw it, we'd probably flip out. We'd be like, oh my God, what happened? What planet are you from? There's no such student? No. These students do exist. And this is one of the reasons why they can exist. Now I'm going to share with you one of the first things you need to take a look at. This is how students typically feel when they enter a class, or even before. Some of you might have seen this image floating around online. This is typically what students tend to ask us. Some of them ask us not so much with a smile, but with a frown, and wondering why it is that we do this. Now, next, I'm going to share with you the definition of gamification. As you can see, it's the use of game thinking and game mechanics in a non-game context in order to engage users and solve problems. Alright, this is by Nick Pillai. Now he's a British gentleman, and he was a computer programmer and also an inventor back in the 1980s. Now I'd like to share with you, just a minute. Alright, one of the key features of gamification is it is used to acquire data, keep time and deadlines, as well as for learning. And let me explain how it's used exactly for this. Of course, this term, gamification, is been coined by Nick Pillai. And one of the things that you need to know is the statistics of today, why it's become relevant. Let's see. Okay, yeah, take a look at this. 40% of global 1,000 organizations will use gamification as a primary mechanism to transform business operations. You can see this happening all around the world. I'm going to give you one example, which is, have you ever seen how call centers now use special tracking systems to award people points, levels and ranks whenever they do a call or they answer successfully? Most of us get prompts to reply with a survey question or answer. Was the call good? Was it effective? Etc. etc. These things are actually translated into points and a ranking system for the person who attended you. And these things actually help build motivation. They get people more excited about their job. They're like, oh, okay, I managed to do this. I'm going to do better next time. And it builds, and people get more driven. Now let's take a look at some of the other statistics that you should take a look at. Now this is from last year, but it's still very, very relevant. 2014, more than 70% of global 2,000 organizations will have at least one gamified application driving 50% of all innovation. This means every time we come up with great ideas, anytime we're doing something new or different that is progressive, it comes from one of these ideas. Half the time. That's a pretty relevant statistic, which I think a lot of people will be, did you know that? This is what's happening in today's world. Let's look at the next one, yeah. All right, M2 research predicts that gamification will be worth 2.8 billion by next year. Now, many companies and institutions are merging gamification with e-learning in an effort to improve the way their students and employees learn. The last line is particularly relevant. It's not just students, it's also employees. And most of you are working with people every day. But even before that, they're students. But how are they learning today? And how come it works with employees as well? This is something that, research shows it. This is one of the statistics that you really need to know. Let's look at the last one. All right. Okay, how many of you guys play games like Candy Crush or have at least one handphone app game that you are addicted to? You have to touch it whenever you've got idle time. Okay, there we go. You can see the hands. Now, this is true, all right? We need to do this. We do it whether it's to kill time or whether some of us are very serious into games. Either which way, we touch these things. And, our students are no different. And guess what? They're also competitive. Some of you will even find that you're playing on the leaderboards against people much younger than you, some even much older than you. Nonetheless, this is what's happening. People, the minute they're engaged, they learn. Have you ever realized that people around you who play games seem to be able to remember with vivid detail all the stuff that they do in their games? How many of you realize that you can remember your stuff in Candy Crush and all the games that you actually play? How many of you remember that? Anybody remember the falling penguins and balancing acts that you see in your games, yeah? All right. Well, students are the same, and this is how they learn. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Okay, now we're going to bring games into education. This is the real tightrope walk. Actually mixing proper content with a game to make it work. And this is what we've been working on. But before that, I'm just going to show you a quick video so you can see what exactly this gamification process is all about.
About a month ago, we did an episode on gamification. In that episode, you may recall that I invited people working in certain fields, including education, to write to us if they wanted to hear James's ideas for how to apply gamification to their work in greater detail. And indeed, they did. A lot of teachers watching the show, apparently. The response was overwhelming. Teachers wrote in from all over the world. In fact, so many of you wrote in that we haven't yet been able to answer all the emails, for which I apologize. Because the response was so huge, and it'll be a while before we can finish replying to all of you, we decided to just go ahead and do an episode on the topic of gamifying education. We could spend many episodes discussing how to gamify classes subject by subject, so we're just going to keep this kind of broad. There are flaws in the way we teach today, systemic flaws which cover every subject and every age. Today we'll be looking at just a few of those flaws and how they might be ameliorated by some of the techniques we've learned through making games, in hopes that it sparks a broader discussion about how we can make education, the foundation of our future, more engaging. Our first topic, grading. Right now, we're using a grading system that is essentially demotivational and sets up a reinforcing feedback loop for failure. Today's students first walk into a classroom or approach new assignments thinking of themselves as having an A+, at least subconsciously, and from there, with every mistake, there's nowhere to go but down. We need to recontextualize grading. In games, we've learned that progress encourages progress, and the human desire for efficiency is a far stronger motivator than the fear of falling further from one's goal. To this end, if you simply make all assignments worth points, let's call them experience for a lark, have all students start at 0 XP and always gain points as they go, continuously progressing towards clear and tangible levels, each with their own benefits. Each assignment and each test feels rewarding rather than disheartening. It's more fun to gain stuff than to lose it. Additionally, this methodology never leaves a student at a point where they feel like they should just give up. The best part is that you don't even have to change anything about the way you already grade the class to do this. You'd still have the same total number of possible points the class was worth, and you divide them in the same manner that we normally divvy up letter grades. All you're doing is counting upwards instead of down, and corresponding the letter grades to levels as you go.
Alright, as you can see, the video is quite clear on where we're going wrong. And I think you've also realized that some of the applications that have been shared here today also employ gamification, where you get points for progress. And there's no such thing as a demerit. There's no such thing as a minus. There's nothing that makes you feel like, oh, I didn't win. Oh, I didn't get there. Everything is moving towards a goal. It's very clear cut. All right? And you can see this, I think, in two applications I've seen. One is from one called Memrise, and another one was English Central. A couple more applications that were mentioned here today as well also do this, where you get points. The Chinese language program, yes, that one also has, yeah. And more and more applications are beginning to catch on to the gamification idea. And this is what should be happening in our schools. You see, what's happening here is we are, as adults, we're teaching students the way we think they should learn. But how should they really learn? Take a look at what we've got here. First of all, students are not engaged. When they come in and they sit down and we use words like, okay, today we're going to study this. Today we're going to learn this. You lose some of them the minute you say things like that. And how you want to engage them, however, what is the first thing we do? We start with something that is absolutely unusual. Some of you already do this. You start with a story. And immediately you have their attention. Now, students aren't exactly allowed to do what they like to do the most, which is play and socialize. In classrooms, they're told to sit down and sit still and don't make noise and don't move around until instructions are given and the work is oriented and set for them to do. This way we don't engage them. But what we want to look at is how gamification changes that. So let's look at how people are rewarded when we gamify. One of the first things we look at, everything we do right, we reward. And every time a person is rewarded, they want to take the next step. Alright, so we look at how they're rewarded whenever they do things right, and also how they can change these rewards for something that they can use. Most of the time, when we're in school, we get rewarded. We have a contract with our parents where we say, alright, if I do well in this, you're going to buy me a new PS4. Alright, I do well in my test, you get me a PS4. I do well in my test, my college test, Dad's going to get me a car. Unfortunately though, some rewards aren't that glamorous, but we'd like to think that they go that way. But gamification allows us to look at things differently, right? Especially when we're rewarded with things that we can do with things like our avatars, things that allow us to customize, right? I want to share with you, have you heard of this thing called these MMORPGs? Has anybody heard of those? They're huge RPGs where hundreds of thousands of people connect onto a server and see each other in different forms and decorate one another. Now, this is what happens where people live a second life. If you're wondering why people are on the computers the whole day, it's because they're living a second life somewhere else. And what they do, why they're so motivated to be over there, is because of gamification. They are rewarded for everything they do there. They're rewarded for, even if one person on the team succeeds, everybody's a winner. And that feeling is golden. That makes everybody feel like, okay, I'm coming back to this. They're looking forward to that more than going to school. That's something we're doing wrong. And we need to fix that. So gamification is really the answer here. Let's take a look at a bit more. One of the things that you can see that students really look forward to is this thing called leveling up. Okay? In real life terms, we would call it getting a promotion. Alright? Now, if we could put this into context for kids in school, the idea of leveling up. Each time they progress with a subject academically, each time they progress developing social and behavioral skills, that's a real level up. Now that would be fantastic if we could do that. Now one of the next things, which I mentioned earlier, they love a good story. Alright? Human beings, since the dawn of time, we love a good story. You want to get our attention, tell a good story. When you do, you have them. And they love that. They also enjoy a decent combination of fun, which is fiction mostly, fantasy, and realism. So it's got to be somewhat unreal, but at the same time also relatable to what they see in real life. Right? So what I'm going to share with you next is that some of the biggest developers of computer games in today's world, they make sure when they design games, players are rewarded for everything they do right, just like the applications which you see. Everything they do right. This is one of the key ones. They make sure that these things are usable. All the rewards are usable. In some cases, reward points are usable enough to exchange for other rewards. Alright? Now, one of the things I'm going to share with you, has anybody heard of Steam? Has anybody heard of Steam? Yeah. Alright? Think of it this way. You guys have ebook catalogs, right? Now, imagine a catalog that catalogs every game that was ever made. That platform is called Steam. Now, I'm not here to advocate for them. I'm just here to show you an example of how it's being used. Now, one of the things that happens there is that when you do well, you earn reward points, you earn reputation, you can actually convert it into real currency and you can buy and sell. There are kids making thousands of dollars in a month because they play games. This is today's world. This is how, how is it they can be so motivated, so driven, so engaged to do these things outside of a classroom. And yet, they develop all these skills, but not from us, the adults. So these are just some of the things that we need to change. However, we're not the only ones who are thinking like this. Two very renowned groups, the MacArthur Foundation and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You guys heard of those? Yeah? Now, they have started this initiative. They've started up this school called Quest to Learn, where everything in the school is centered around gamification, all right? Where all the learning and education is made and designed to engage. The entire experience is to engage children. Another one of these initiatives, which you may have heard earlier today, the Khan Academy, right? That's also one of those where you get points whenever you get things right and you progress. This was also done by the Microsoft group. Right, and incidentally, we are also doing it in our school. And I'm just going to share with you one of the examples. We actually take our kids over to a water theme park to do ag math and physics coursework. Alright, so they go into these camps and these activities just to do coursework related to ag math and physics. And it changes the way they learn. Imagine kids going and playing and splashing around in water but coming out more knowledgeable about their algebraic equations, more knowledgeable about density and other physics concepts. This is how they should learn. They should learn in a way that makes it a lot more interesting. It's like a game. We have this thing also called the Amazing English Race, which we do for our English just before GCSE. They actually prepare for their, they do past year papers and stuff, and there's a scoreboard. So think of it as a leaderboard, and it tallies up, and we see who wins the race first. And it really drives students to work together in pairs and teams and get them engaged. So it doesn't feel like such a grueling task to do past year papers. Now I'm going to share with you one more very important thing that we happen to be working on, because we've talked so much about gamification. We, as a group, we've been working on this, and you might find this a bit strange, but it's a whole bunch of teachers that have actually put together a game. So we're going to show you a little trailer of what that looks like. Well, if you believe it or not, that was done by our group of Malaysian teachers that decided to put this together. Now, I gotta tell you, the game design, the mechanics, our artists, they're all homegrown. However, we are working in a collaboration for our sound and our programming together with Jakarta, Tokyo, and Sydney. I myself work on the game mechanics, and I'm quite heavily invested in this project, which all our teachers are actually. All our teachers are a part of it. And I'd just like to say, how many of you guys think it's really cool that we put chemistry, a difficult subject that deals with particles and molecules, into a secondary high school subject? That is a game. How many of you think that is cool? How many of you wish you could learn chemistry that way? Guess what? You won't be let down. When the game is out, you will all get your chance. Our biggest test will be for people who do not know anything about chemistry to pick it up and learn chemistry. Alright? Now, let's move along. Let's see. Alright, let's look at some of the things the game looks like. Yeah, this is some of the snapshots of the game. You can see the periodic table. It has actually been shaped very much alongside the design of the world map. The world map itself, which you will see, looks very much like the periodic table, and it has all the details of chemistry, the essential ones, which you will definitely, of course you'll need to know. You can see the shape there, yeah? Alright, there we go. You can see the reactive metals in one spot, transition metals. Any of you chemistry teachers over here? There we go. Alright, so you can see the relevance here. We took a lot of time with our chemistry teachers and our teachers as developers to work on all these little details. Let's move along with more slides. Okay, yeah, you can see the cutesy characters, the objectives. They're very game-oriented, right down to the naming, which will break down how particles work, how separation techniques work, all of the things essential for the targeted year group for this particular game. There will be more, of course. Let's go along. Okay, here you can see some of the separation techniques. These are the things that will be put into quests. So when a child picks up a game and plays it, they don't really know what they are learning, as in not consciously. It's what I like to call phantom learning. So as they play, they're learning, and they don't have to think of it as they are consciously, oh, I'm doing this. As they play it, they repeat it, they get more rewards, they get more engaged in the game, and then when they are done, they go into class, teacher asks them, okay, so how do you do this? Guess what? They'll know it because they played it. Alright, now let's move along. Okay, this is our what the game world actually looks like. Okay, this is the starting map. Yeah, this is a tutorial town called Camp Unku. Alright, it's called Camp Unku. It's spelled CAMPUNKU. Any of you get the pun in that? Try saying it fast. Kampungku, very Malaysian brand, alright? So, this is what it looks like initially. Of course, these are still the pre-design. Our graphics have gone a lot further than this. That what you saw just now used to be 3D characters on 2D isometrics. Now we've changed them to full 3D. Yeah. Okay, these are the particles. Particles, play on the word particles. And this is, well, as you can see, they look very cutesy and stuff because we had to figure out a very difficult question. Games, typically, people tend to associate with guys. We had to figure out how do we make it also relevant and fun for girls. And we realized that one of the things they really like is a collection of all these cute creatures, particularly fancy for them, and it went down quite well. Okay. Yeah, you can see how Each one of them has details as to what they do, and all their nature corresponds to their chemical properties. And there's also this thing called a compendium. It's like our encyclopedia of all the chemical elements and all the properties in relation to the game terminology and to real-life chemistry. This is what one of the experiments looks like. It's a mini game actually, and you actually have to trace the objects, because as you learn it, you have to know these things. So we make them play these mini games repetitively. They get really good at it, and there's a chance for failure, but you can always try again. And each time you succeed, of course, the rewards are better based on your success rate. Right? Let's move along. Okay. Basically, we are trying to replace all the stuff that parents object to make something that people would like, people would enjoy. Right? And students get to learn in a way that they like, which is kind of a win-win for parents, because they get to play and learn, and at the same time the student doesn't feel like, oh, I'm doing work the whole time, right? We're also humanizing a very difficult subject, as I mentioned earlier, and Act 1 of this game will be covering specifically for the age group Year 7 and Year 8, 10 to 14 years of age, all right? Now, I'm going to explain another thing to you which is quite important. This is by Robert Kiyosaki in one of his books. He mentions this thing called lag time. Anybody know what that is? Alright, I'm going to explain it to you. This is a problem we have in our education system, where everything we learn today is 50 years behind its time. Meaning, if we want to be prepped for what we're going to be facing today, we'd have to go 50 years into the future. So that's 2065 before we actually come out prepared for 2015, which doesn't make any sense at all. Alright? So one of the next things you need to see is that we were picked by Cambridge Student Council, right, to go into their 50th anniversary compilation. And this is recognition I'm mentioning to you not for any specific reason of the school. I need to be very clear about this. This is recognition because it was done by invite only. And I'm sharing this with you because I want you guys to know that this works. Gamification is really the direction that we're heading to. Let me show you one of the next slides. This is the UNESCO 70th edition as well. And we were one of the 22 schools picked from around the world, again by invitation only. We had no idea we would be ending up here or even selected for this process. In fact, one of the key questions we asked them was, how did you know about us? Because we're not exactly one to go out there and say anything about ourselves. Let's show you another one. Okay, this is one of our partners. They have been working in the education line, training trainers and students around the world for more than 20 years. And we are one of the only schools, in fact, the only one that's been given the seal of excellence in the Asian region. And these guys, well, they've worked for a long time in the States. I'll tell you more about it, but that probably have to go in the Q&A session. The last one. Right, we just recently got this award, SME Award for Innovation. I've got to be very clear about this. We got this for innovation, not because we make a lot of money, not because we do anything unusual or we paid for something. No, this was for innovation. We didn't even know about it until we were notified to attend the ceremony. So I just want to leave you all with this food for thought today. Gamification. This is the next frontier for our education in whatever we do, in wherever we go. And that's what I want to leave you with. Thank you very much.